Heyo, welcome everyone to episode 14 of Today in the Scene. I'm Joe with Indie Arcade Wave, and this is my co-host Dylan from Galactic Battleground.
Hey, what's up?
Shout out to our sponsors, Can Arcade, everything arcade, music, and cannabis. Now we put this episode out every Friday, so if you guys are liking what we're doing here, make sure to subscribe, hit that bell, follow us, whatever you got to do wherever you're listening. So this week we're speaking with the guys behind Armed and Gelatinous again. We've got Rob and Anthony with us. How you guys doing?
Doing
Doing
good.
all right.
Awesome. So we're going to talk about conventions today. As someone that's been to conventions, they're all a little bit different. They all have their pros, they all have their cons, often a lot of cons, but great memories. Let's just jump right into your guys' beginning of conventions with Armed and Gelatinous, even with Influent. Let's go to GDC 2014, 15, and 17. What can you guys tell me about those?
Well, 2014 was like kind of the jump off point for us with Influent,
The old
which
Influent
is
days.
yeah, that was kind of the beginning of everything. This game that I had made, it was like a language learning game I developed when I was living in Japan, and yeah, I wanted to release it at GDC to kind of make a big splash with it because it was kind of a new sort of take on gamified learning and stuff. And I hit up Anthony from the Art Institute where we both went to school and was like, "Hey, I'm going to be in San Francisco. I'm going to GDC. Can I crash on your couch or whatever?" And so like he was like, "Yeah, let's do this." And I asked if he'd help run the booth and stuff, and so he was super down for that. And then we went to GDC together and like set up the booth and did all this stuff.
Oh, it was the most
Um,
beautiful indie booth you've ever seen. It was like I think a 14-inch monitor. Like it was awesome. Let me tell you.
Yeah, it was very, very bare bones. Like, I don't think we even had a sign. Like, we just went with the basic
We had your
sign.
Kickstarter poster. That was it.
Oh yeah, it was like 8.5 by 11 or something. But
Yeah,
then
it was.
we had like this sign that they had printed that was like white with black text, just said like Influent on it, and it had like a booth number. And it was yeah, it was pretty bare bones operation, but like we'd never done anything like this before. I'd never done anything like it, and honestly, like Spooky was just down for the cause to like help volunteer. And this was like the launch day of this game on Steam.
Yeah, so
Uh,
that was kind of like our beginning. I think we should even flash forward like a year later with Arm and Gelatinous. And speaking of our indie booth, we actually got like best booth for Arm and Gelatinous from the Indie Gamer Girl.
that's right. Yeah. So we grew a lot in 1 year apparently. um, but yeah, that was like a lot to deal with initially, just like the idea of exhibiting and like how many people you actually have to talk to and that sort of thing. So it was super um, fortunate that Spooky was there to help. And yeah, we kind of just you know were shoved in the corner of like all these other mobile games and stuff. Like the indie scene at GDC is kind of difficult in terms of getting exposure because they've got these multi-million-dollar booths around the corner in like the South Hall, or I guess the North Hall, and then in the South Hall, or wait, other way around, in the North Hall they shove you into this kind of like mobile slash indie area away from the rest of the expo, and you really don't get nearly as much foot traffic over there.
Yeah, and
um,
as a developer, it's frustrating. You really you need to go out there and literally drag people to your booth. And by
yep.
people I mean like press, or if you're looking for a publisher or anybody that has any real decision power, they're probably not going to come to the indie section in the like empty basement. Like it's difficult.
Yeah, and like I would say as well in terms of the overall cost of the booth space, it's really not fair to indies. You're paying more than you'd be paying for other expos that give you kind of decent floor space, and then you're getting a lot less in terms of where they put you. So yeah, we didn't know this. Obviously it's like our first few cons or whatever, and so when we did GDC for those years, we just didn't know any better. And we kind of went with it and we are like, oh, this is just, the standard price for a booth or whatever. Turns out, packs and other things are like a fraction of the cost, and you get a lot more. But we were just doing what we thought was right. And like we lived in San Francisco, or at least like, went to school there. And so we knew GDC inside and out. I'd been going to GDC for like 5 years without exhibiting, just kind of
Well,
like scoping it out.
and we kind of wised up to that, especially because we came back in 2017 and we didn't pay for a booth or anything, which Microsoft actually selected us as a participant to be in their lobby bar. So we didn't have to do setup, we didn't have to tear down, we just kind of had to show up, and that was the best way to do GDC.
Yeah,
So
that
if
was
we're
cool. We just like
yeah,
sent them a build and we showed up and they had an Xbox running it at like a kiosk with controllers. They even made us controller skins and stuff. Like it was super cool. So that
Yeah,
was the easy way.
that
yeah, that
sounds
was the
better
best.
better than the first year and the second year. What exactly is GDC though?
It's the Game Developers Conference and it's kind of like the industry event of the year. It's basically where all the game developers get together, and I have a lot of keynotes. Like big publishers will get up and give, you know, I guess discussions is what you would call like panels on certain technologies that are being used in their games, how they accomplish this. They do a lot of like postmortems. They do a lot of interviews, and there's also a big game awards ceremony that happens. It's not called the Game Awards. It's called, I think, the IGDA or something like that.
That is right.
Um, and then there's another one alongside. It's the IGDA, and then it's like the indie version of that. Or maybe I have this backwards. There's like two game awards that happen back to back at GDC. And yeah, it's kind of like this big celebration of what's gone on the previous year. And yeah, it's grown in size and popularity like year over year, and it's always at Moscone Center in downtown San Francisco, which in recent years has been more and more annoying, um, especially the year that they were like rebuilding everything, and that was like I think 2 years ago. But yeah, it's like honestly, I've always said like if San Francisco were to like sink into the ocean like during GDC, like the entire video game industry would collapse.
I didn't
Damn.
realize it had that much pull.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. Like everybody's there.
Well, and
Huh.
based on our experiences, anytime that someone asks me about GDC, what I honestly tell them as like from a developer to a developer, if you really want to go to GDC, don't get a booth. Just go and hang out at the Marriott bar and you will meet everybody who actually has like real decision power in the business side of video games. That's where they all hang out. And that's
That
true
was
for a lot of expos actually.
that was
Mm.
something I wanted to ask was so GDC as someone that's coming to check out the conference, thumbs up or thumbs down, and then someone who's going as an indie dev, thumbs up or thumbs down.
Well, I mean, if they're going as an indie dev, not to exhibit, just to like see it, yeah, I'd say thumbs up. Like it's worth going for everybody who's in the industry who's
It's
interested because
it's
you're gonna meet people.
Yeah, it's a great networking opportunity, and they have a lot of after parties, and you're going to meet a lot of interesting people. And it's a
Yeah,
it's a it's a great way to kind of talk to them informally.
and
So
Um,
even if
you
you're
can
not
get just as
looking,
much out of it going as a guest as opposed to an exhibitor.
I,
right?
I would prefer doing that actually. I don't. I would say don't be an exhibitor at GDC to be
It's
honest. If
only
you're
like $150, $200 at the most for an expo pass that'll get you in the door, and that's all you really need to get into the parties too. Sometimes you don't even need that. And like just being amongst it, like with everybody there, you're going to meet people, even if you're not looking to meet people, you're going to meet people that will impact your future. It's happened every time I've gone. Every year, I'm like, I love this. I love meeting these people and having these connections and just like this experience. And it's inspiring to really see the entire industry and the energy in the industry every year. So I love GDC for that reason. But I definitely would not recommend for at least an indie developer to get a booth because there's better ways to spend that money. Which
I
is
think we
like,
should.
I know it's a little harsh, but like at the same time, this is our experience. Like we've done this, we did this a lot, and like we kind of just realized that GDC just doesn't provide the sort of space and I guess just the exposure that you're looking for when you spend that much money and time and energy on basically self promotion. I mean, it's a marketing thing, and it just never really paid off for us. And that's not to say the Microsoft thing didn't. That was the best thing ever. We didn't have to pay for that though. That
Right, that was
was
invitation. I mean, you get
Yeah.
invited by a big company, you're not going to say no.
When
that was
I'd
and that's
almost
the way to do
say
it. If you ever get that opportunity, absolutely do that.
I'd almost
Um,
say the same is true for our other event for Gamescom. Just on the overall scale and size of that event, it's much more geared and weighed towards the AAA industry than a smaller independent developer.
You're saying
yeah,
GDC is more?
No, Gamescom as well.
well,
I
both of
mean,
them,
both
yeah,
of them are.
Okay, well let's go into Gamescom 2014
right.
because that was the next thing I wanted to talk about. I thought this was interesting because as a member of a development team, I've never left the US for a conference. And you guys have done it a few times. So let's talk about Germany first.
Yeah, totally. That was also primarily an Influent expo. So it was actually interesting because it wasn't just Spooky and I. It was also my friend Ryan and his girlfriend at the time, Nicole. We all got on a plane and flew over to Cologne and got Airbnbs. And it turned out that I can't remember exactly what happened with the Airbnbs, but like
Well,
Spooky ended up in the same.
Germany at the time had a weird gray area with Airbnb. It was kind of like almost borderline illegal. So they list like the fake maps and fake addresses on the Airbnb. So I land and I like can't find my place, and the taxi guy's like, "Yeah, this address doesn't exist. I don't know where this is." So I like check into a hotel, and then I finally meet up with them, and I find out we're actually staying in the same Airbnb, and we had no idea.
Yeah, it was
You're
wild.
staying in the same Airbnb as Rob?
Yeah,
Yeah, like he
like
showed up to the address and just like because he wasn't able to even communicate to me that he wasn't finding his Airbnb. Like we couldn't because none of our phones worked. We didn't have internet, nothing like that, right? So eventually he just shows up at our Airbnb and he's like, "Yeah, I'm staying here." And we're like, "What?"
So you guys got double booked basically.
Yeah, it was two different rooms in the same like apartment, and they were two separate listings under two separate hosts. So we expected to be like across town from each other, and we ended up being in the same fucking apartment.
Was
yeah,
that a benefit or is that just like luck? Like, was it
it was
okay with you guys
it,
that you guys spent
yeah,
that
it
much?
was
Or
no, it was luck. It was just awesome luck
That was
actually. Like
great.
our
And
host
then our
was
host
so
was so
cool.
cool. She was
for real?
great. Yeah, she was amazing.
Did you like
It was,
She
take
had
you around town and stuff or what?
Well, she had an entire elaborate pulley system in her room, and she would untie it and pull down a basket, and the basket would be full of snacks. And she'd be like, "It's snack time!" And then she would pull the basket back up.
That's
yeah,
awesome.
like hanging from the ceiling like a chandelier or something. But it was like a basket full of like German chocolates and stuff. It
Oh,
was
dude,
so
German chocolate is the best.
yeah. So she was like the coolest. I'm trying to remember her name. What was her name?
Uh, Isabel, was that it?
Yeah, Izzy. That's right. That was so cool. So
Games,
anyway,
but
aside
Games
from Airbnb,
Gamescom was overwhelming though. The amount of people.
can we start like with our entrance experience trying to
Oh
get into
God,
Gamescom?
yeah, I conveniently forgot about that.
What a nightmare! I
So
just can't
before you
even
jump
begin to
in,
tell you.
give me an idea of how many people are there.
Uh,
Oh God!
the year we were there, I think there was over 450,000 people.
Whoa, that's a big one.
And
Half a
like
mil.
if you
Yeah,
contrast that with like PAX, I think PAX is like 30,000 people. Like PAX
And
East,
PAX is big. I
is
mean,
that right?
PAX is
Like,
known as a pretty big
does
convention.
anybody know like PAX East's like numbers?
I think
No,
it's
I
between
don't.
30. I think it's between 30 and 50.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to say. Um, but I'm looking to try and find some
52,000.
number. Yeah, so like 50,000
Yeah.
people. Add 400,000 to that, and then you have GameCom, right? Like it's insane, and it's like the
Also,
biggest expo in Europe, and people come from all
don't
over
forget the
Europe.
language barrier. The language barrier adds a lot to that.
Yeah, so German is like the primary language there. I mean, a lot of people speak English in Europe, but like you're in Germany, so
Right.
the majority of the population who's there is German, and a lot of the they'll have like stage shows where they're throwing like merch into the audience and everyone's screaming. Like all of that takes place in German, and it's kind of hilarious. But basically, we were there trying to get in to this 450,000 person expo just to like set up our booth. I think this is the first day. Was it the day before? I think it was actually like the day of.
It was setup day.
Oh, it was. It was the day before.
Yeah.
Okay, so we get there for setup day, and it's just pandemonium. There's just like a massive line of people trying to get in, and I think that these were people that like had special tickets to get into the expo like a day early while
Like an
people were
early
setting
entrance
up or
kind of
stuff.
thing?
Yeah, because there were definitely people there that like weren't even exhibitors, and we were like in this entry hall, and they had some escalators with security in front of them, and the escalators are basically what go into the expo. And we're like going to this booth to try and register to get in, and they're like, okay, like where are your tickets that we mailed you or whatever. And I think they mailed them to Japan because that's where I like initially registered because I was living there. And they were like, yeah, if you don't have those, you can get them at the
The
exhibitor lounge,
the business center.
the business center, which
Yeah.
is like we're like, oh, okay, cool. Well, where's that? And they're like, oh, here, it's on the map. It's inside the expo hall.
Yeah, you have to get through the gate that you need your passes on to get to the business hall to get your pass.
And
That
so
makes
we're
sense.
like,
seeing
okay,
the problem here?
Yeah.
so how do we get to the expo, or how do we get to the business center to get our passes to get in that you sent to Japan when you should have sent here? And they're just like, oh yeah, well, go talk to like the entrance people. That's not we can't do anything. Sorry. And we're like, okay. So we go over to like the entrance, and we're talking to the people who are guarding the entrance, and they're just like, if you don't have passes, you can't get in. And there's like this other dude who's an exhibitor who's like bitching them out, like screaming at them about this exact same problem. And I'm like overhearing him, and I'm like, are you having the same like disconnect of like you don't have your passes and you can't get to the business? He's like, yeah, this is ridiculous, blah 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 blah. And we're like, yeah, this is ridiculous. And so we had his back, and like we just kept bitching and bitching until they
There
went
was
and grabbed
a
some
small
like.
group of like indie devs that were pissed off screaming at this woman.
Well, the woman wasn't even there yet. They had to go and get her.
That's
And then
right.
she comes up and starts like fielding our like anger and is trying to tell us no. She's literally like doubling down on like the security telling us we can't get in. And we're like, are you crazy? Like we spent like how much money to be here? We like flew across the country or across the world to like come to Gamescom, and you won't let us in because the place where we need to get our passes is inside this like threshold guardian. Like this is fucking ridiculous. And we basically had to like all get her to give it up and let us through. And she
Well,
like
there was even a
escorted
point
us.
where she was like, "Hold on, I'll get to you in a moment." And all of us as a group said, "No, you're going to deal with all of us now."
Yeah.
And that was kind of like her breaking point of like, "Okay, here." And she just like did her little pass thing to let us through and was like, "Here, just go make it someone else's problem," basically.
Yeah, we brute forced our way in basically. And then we went and got our passes at the business center, and they were very helpful at the business center. We were like, why was it so ridiculous to get here? They were like, oh yeah, sorry, we don't know. And just like complete disconnect.
Oh my god.
I forgot
So
about that.
that was a nightmare, dude. Like that kind of like just sort of put a bad taste in our mouth from the beginning. But everything after that actually went really well. Like everything after that was good, except for the computers that they gave us. Those were not good.
Oh yeah, they were awful.
What was like the biggest highlight of that con? Like, what was your favorite thing about it?
The skate park.
Oh, of course you're gonna say that. Oh yeah,
Dude, they had a skate park. All right, so this place is like 15 football fields of like
Well, every
expo space.
every expo has like one major big hall. Think of that big hall, but multiply it by 12. So they had
Yeah,
like at least 12 massive halls, and then you'd have corridors that would connect each one. It was
and the
just
Wow.
insane.
one we were in was 2 stories, and it was like as big as PAX East, but like 2 stories. So if you went upstairs from where our booth was, like directly on top of our booth, there was a skate park. Just happened to be right there. So I just had to like go to the staircase, walk upstairs, boom. And it was like a PlayStation 4 sponsored thing, and they built like a giant PS4 that lit up with like a blue light inside of it. Because this was right around the time the PS4 was like new.
Launching.
Yeah, I think it was launching that year or the year before or something. And that like they had this dope skate park, and I had it all to myself because I could get in early. So I would go there in the morning, like before the place opened, and just skate it all by myself. It was
that's
amazing.
awesome.
Oh, it was so good.
Do you
They
have
had
any
like
videos?
I don't think I have videos. I have
They have pictures.
photos.
But that
Yeah.
that event also, like, it was so massive. They had a full video game like arcade up there. They also
Oh
had a
yeah.
full like museum. Like
Dude,
they're
they
like,
had like little
here's
drifter
every
RC car racetracks.
yeah. It was just kind of like everything you could ever imagine. It was insane. Um,
Red
but
Bull
even
Teenage
like
sponsored
Red Dream, right?
Red,
yeah, it really was.
Red Bull sponsored the skate park too, and they had like a bunch of pros come and do like a contest like
That's
right there.
awesome.
And then they had yeah, like those drifter RC cars, like the big like gas powered like drifting
Yeah.
RC
Yeah.
car. Yeah, they had like racetracks. They had like 2 or 3 tracks set up, and they were doing like races and competitions too. They just do like everything at Gamescom. It's
So
insane.
they just had like a ton of things to look at and do. And
Oh,
Not just-
how long was the convention?
Oh, it's 5 days, dude.
and it was like
5 days?
It was like 12
Damn.
hours a day too.
Yeah, and we were there like for the setup day. So we had 6 days of work. We had to like set up, and then we had 5 full con days.
Yeah, most exhausting con I've ever
Like
done.
PAX East used to be 3, then they made it 4, and that was crazy. But Gamescom is 5 days.
Yeah, I mean,
And-
I'm wiped out after a 3-day convention.
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy. Even having like 10-hour days, 12-hour days.
There were some significant moments that happened at this expo, though. One of them was like we would hand out stickers as like free swag to people. And this is the expo where like, you know what, stickers suck. Like we watched all these people would be like, oh, give me a sticker, and they would literally walk away from us, unstick it, and throw it on the floor. Or the horrible part was we went to the escalator, and it was just like literally only our sticker jammed like 1,000 times into inside of the escalator, like
Like
nonstop.
on the handle, like the handle.
Why would they do
Yeah.
that? That's just stupid.
Yeah, and on the floor. Like people stuck them everywhere, and like we actually realized later after we handed them out at PAX Australia too, that they would actually find you and then fine you for having like basically you'd be responsible for the vandalism that other people would do if you gave out stickers at PAX.
Yikes.
Yeah.
And so we dodged that bullet. Like thankfully, like the first year where we had stickers, people were pretty okay with like not being a dickhead. But we saw the rules later, and we were like, oh shit, like let's never bring stickers back to PAX.
Well, and we thought of what would somebody not throw out, and that's kind of how we landed on pins.
Oh yeah,
Like
pins
enamel
are-
pins, like real
Mhm.
enamel pins, because you're not going to throw it away. It's a keepsake forever.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that you're gonna remember the convention by,
Yeah.
just like the badge.
Like the soft enamel ones, like the
No,
Yeah,
no,
like
like
the
ones.
hard. No,
Hard-
these are
yeah,
like
hard.
die cut,
Okay, hard cut. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. like
And this is-
expensive.
This is also the first expo Armed and Gelatinous was like actually kind of shown at, even though it was a small. It was basically the Game Jam version, but like
Yeah, because at
slimmed down.
Gamescom, I like splurged and got 2 booths next to each other, and yeah, I wanted there to be like 2 stations because Influent is kind of like you play it for a little while to get the feel of it. You learn a bunch of words, and I'd had 1 booth previously at GDC, and I was kind of like, yeah, we should do 2. so that way like two people can play at the same time or whatever, and not have this long line issue. And then like yeah, and one day we decided let's just put Armed and Gelatinous on because yeah, it's a good game, and like I think I just want to see how people react to it. And it was crazy. It was like
Attention, a lot of attention there.
we had like a line that was like 3 times as long as the Influent line, and we had publishers coming up to us and asking like, when is this coming out? What platforms is it releasing on? Like we even had like Alienware come up to us and they were like, give us a build and like we'll talk about the alpha and stuff because they were trying to get games on their alpha or whatever.
Yeah, it was like a Steam machine.
If you guys
at the
remember
time.
what that was. But the crazy thing was when somebody from Sony came up and they were like, yeah, we want this on PlayStation. And we were like, oh fuck, this is a big deal. So yeah, that was kind of the turning point when Spooky and I realized that like we should make Armed and Gelatinous.
Yeah, we wanted to start to pursue it because we felt there was some weight behind it. I mean, obviously the people cared.
So you guys got some exposure here. Some people saw it, and then where did you go next? Did you guys go to PAX and Mag West?
PAX Australia. Yeah,
PAX Australia. Okay.
2014 in October.
Because that
Which
was a
just
similar
a couple
situation.
months later.
Yeah, it
I
was
think-
Influent and Arm and Gelatinous again.
I think
It was a
Gamescom is like August,
End
And
of
then-
August. Halloween for
and then
PAX.
PAX is like Halloween. So like very soon after that, we took it to PAX Australia, and we did the same thing. We had 2 booths. We had one for Influent, one for Armed and Gelatinous, and it was cool because the Influent one, or the Armed and Gelatinous one, was right on a corner spot, and we got like a couch for it, and that was a big deal because like people could sit down and play it on the couch, and it was like a couch game. And we started to really see like we started to learn how to like make our booth inviting and stuff, and like make it like a I don't know, like a nice place to stop and chill and play our game and enjoy it. And like that was why our GDC 2015 booth was so good. I think it was because we had that experience at PAX Australia. But anyway, the PAX experience in Australia was insane. Like we paid
That was
so
my
much
first
less.
PAX. Yeah, that was my first PAX as well ever.
Same. Yeah, we'd never even been to a PAX. And like I think we paid like less than $2,000 for that booth. Or for like we bought 2 of them because they were cheap. But they gave us an exhibitor lounge with like a dedicated chef.
Exhibitor
Like a
only
green
bathroom.
room?
Yeah,
Like
like
the
an
first
exhibitor
one?
only bathroom
Wow.
and an exhibitor only dining room.
That's amazing.
With like a chef there. And you could like order food and they'd make it like right there.
Was there a menu, or do you just like tell them what you want?
Yeah. No,
it was
there
a daily
menu.
menu.
Oh, okay,
Changed
gotcha.
every day.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It was insane. It felt like honestly like you go to an airport, like an international airport, and you go into like let's say you're flying like something like really swanky, like I don't know, Virgin Airlines, and like you go to their lounge and they have like a chef and they have like a chill area and there's like bathrooms and stuff and you just chill there. That's what it was. And it was like insane. We were just amazed how well they treated us as exhibitors at PAX compared to like Gamescom and GDC and shit. We were just like, this is ridiculous. Why is this not is this because Australia or is this because PAX? Turns out it's because Australia actually, but even still PAX back in America will have better bang for your buck. But yeah, like nothing compares to the treatment that we got in PAX Australia.
I
Nothing.
mean, it sounds like an awesome convention. I mean, PAX, from what I'm hearing from you guys, it just sounds like PAX was so much more worth the time and the money than the other 2 conventions.
It was also like a really exciting experience to go to PAX because of how much nerd culture is there. I mean, Gamescom kind of had that, but it was so big and overwhelming, and like I don't know, it was difficult for us to really enjoy it.
Well, and also
Whereas-
I'd say PAX is kind of like, it's very positive. Everyone wants to be your friend. It's going to be like everyone's has the same like nerd
Hmm.
thing in common with each other. Gamescom had some like hatred almost. Like, and I mean it like they were selling like the Apple, or I'm sorry, the Android logo guy like peeing on the Apple logo and things like that, or they would sell like troll face stuff. And so there's kind of like a part of that, like it's so
There's
large.
some toxicity
Yeah,
there.
there's a
Yeah.
toxicity, and they cater to that audience because it's video games, and PAX is not like that.
PAX is like curated, and it's also like because it was in Australia and it was like the only really big video game expo at that time. I think that was even before Rooster Teeth Expo was a thing. They got everybody in the country, and like everyone was stoked. And it was like I think the second annual PAX
It
that had even
was
happened in Australia. We missed
the
like the
first,
first
yeah, the
year.
first one was in a tent. It wasn't even in an
Yeah,
expo hall.
this was the first one that was even in an expo hall, and
Wow.
like people were stoked, and like we were super excited because it was our first PAX. That was the year we discovered X-Wing miniatures, like the best tabletop game I've ever seen in my life. Except maybe Kingdom Death Monster. That one's pretty close, but
But
no, like
board
we
games, there's
became
so many board
obsessed.
games.
We became obsessed quickly with like X-Wing miniatures. We discovered that because of PAX because they had people there teaching it. Like that level of nerdom and fandom is just like unprecedented. We'd never seen it before, and we got to really experience it because once the expo hall closes, right? This is something that doesn't happen at GDC and Gamescom. When the expo hall closes, PAX still happens. It goes until like midnight. So we got off of our booth, and suddenly, and that's like 5 p.m., 6 p.m. maybe, and we've got like 6, 7 hours to like do stuff. And that was a big deal because now we can enjoy it. It's not like, oh, the expo hall's closed, go home. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you as an exhibitor have the freedom to actually explore and see what everybody else is showing off without the pressure of
Exactly.
being like, I need to be at my booth.
Right, and
Right.
it makes you feel more inclusive to the event and what is going on, and you are able to kind of connect with the community that's there.
That's tight. That's awesome.
And that's
Yeah, it's
something I
so
feel like you
good.
don't
So,
have in a lot of other expos.
in
No,
regards
you
to like
don't.
exposure, you're saying like Gamescom has nothing in comparison to PAX, correct? Like,
Yeah, because Gamescom's so big. If you're not like AAA in the same way you're not, like E3. Like if you're not AAA, like good luck, dude. Like everybody's dumping millions into their
yeah,
booths. So you're just this tiny little shrimp, It doesn't really matter. Like it's
Yeah,
not to say we didn't have an impact and like it's not to say it wasn't beneficial to us, but it is to say that like bang for your buck or whatever, like PAX is still better.
well, I remember very specifically at Gamescom, I looked at like a banner for like it was like Far Cry 4, I think, and I was like, that banner probably costs more money than our entire marketing budget for a lifetime, like for our
Yeah,
small indie
yeah.
game.
I believe that.
Oof.
You know, it's sad but true.
I believe it.
That's just our place in the industry at the moment. At that
Well, I mean,
Yeah,
time.
they have the money to just pump into it. Like, they're making these games that are millions of dollars by the time of the end of production. Like, they need to sell, so they need to pump marketing money too,
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard that the marketing budgets for AAA video games are equal, if not greater than the development budgets.
which is a lot of money.
It is.
But
It's
part of
staggering.
like the PAX though is it's also kind of connected to MagFest and MagWest.
So
Some of the same people kind of work on both events.
tell me about that, because I've heard a lot about MagWest with the indie scene and how big it is for not only, I mean, indie games, but indie arcade games specifically.
Well, it's
Yeah,
actually
not
more MagFest. And what I mean by that is like they've recently, I think in the last 3 or 4 years, started doing a West side edition of MagFest. And,
yep.
and that it's actually very small. But MagFest is huge. It's like 30,000 people in Maryland at like this hotel, and they take over the whole hotel. And there's like crazy musical performances all night long. But Mag West is kind of like the little new up and coming or was up and coming West edition of that.
And we went to the first two that they ever had, and they were smaller events, but every single person you met were so stoked and so happy to be there, and so much like, oh my god, I don't know who you are, but you're my new best friend because you're here. Like it
Yeah,
was
the vibe
something
was
special.
amazing. I don't know how they like fostered that vibe, especially on like the first go, because we were there for the first one. But I think it's just about how MagFest as like an organization as a whole was able to foster that vibe overall and then kind of bring that west just with the organization and the people that they knew. Even though it was tiny, it was just so good. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that it's a lot of the same people that are involved with PAX, but also the fact that it's the same sort of vibe in that it goes all night. Like PAX goes until midnight. Like they have to close the expo hall. But MagFest and MagWest, they go to hotels that will let them do 24 hours. So it doesn't stop.
And that's kind of brought us into like the arcade thinking as well, with Mag West especially, because that was one of the first events that we went to that we would see arcade units like set up like classic arcade machines, and we would go there and play all these games. Like this is awesome, but each time they kind of put us as like an independent developer, like in our own room or our own section, and each time we were like, I wish we were in that room, the room with all the arcade machines.
Yeah, that was where all the action was. I mean, we would go there when the expo hours for like our little indie room were over and they would close it up. Like that's where we would go because we wanted to hang out in that room because that was the cool, like, what are all these cool machines room. Um, so that was sort of like one of the first introductions, or I guess sort of like one of the first things that led to us wanting to make an arcade version. And then there was that guy Nugget that we met like backstage.
Yeah, shout out to Nugget.
Yeah, we were like bringing our stuff from our booth into like a storage room so that we could go like fuck around and go see some shows and stuff. And they were like, yeah, you can drop your stuff in here. And on our way to that room, we walked behind the arcade room, kind of in this little hallway. And this dude, Nugget, was sitting on his computer, his laptop, and like fiddling with some electronics. And I was like looking at it, and it was some components to an arcade machine. And I started talking to him about it. I was like, what is all this? Like, what are you doing, dude? This is crazy. And he explained, that he kind of operates the Mag West and MagFest arcade space. He's kind of like the manager of it. And we were like, whoa, that's super cool. And started asking him questions about, arcade machines and, um, how we thought, oh, it'd be cool if we put Armed and Gelatinous on an arcade machine because flashback to my birthday the year before, I went to Portland to visit some friends, and they were at the time porting their game to an arcade cabinet called the Tinderbox.
Yep.
And I was kind of interested in getting Armed and Gelatinous on this Tinderbox, and so I had my laptop and I busted it out and I started doing the same sort of like input modifications that they were doing to get it to run on their like joystick and button system. And I got it working, and we could actually play Armed and Gelatinous on the Tinderbox. They actually ended up shipping that thing down to South by Southwest in Texas, and a whole bunch of people played Armed and Gelatinous at South by Southwest one year, which was really cool. But we had already kind of flirted with that arcade edition a little bit, and so once we met Nugget, I was telling him about that, and he was like, "Yeah, you guys should build a machine, and like, you should check out this website and like look at some plans, and you should, check out what an iPack is, and like all this other stuff that he was telling us about that we never heard of." And it kind of blew our minds and just kind of opened up this sort of door in terms of getting a arcade cabinet built for our game.
And once we like built a machine, the other benefit that we didn't realize at the time that kind of came naturally was running an arcade machine as like a booth as an expo versus running a console game at an expo are two very different experiences. And I personally feel like almost the arcade one is it's much easier. It's more fun, takes off a lot of stress from you. um, there's no explanation. If you have an arcade machine, a group of people will come up to it and just start playing it. They're going to figure it out. And that's kind of part of built into the culture of an arcade machine of like, oh, I'm gonna play this and I'm gonna figure it out with everyone else and we're gonna be on even footing and we're gonna play it. When you do that with a console machine, it's very different. You have that expectation of like, I'm at an event, I want to sit down, you need to walk me through it, almost make it like an event or like a theme park. They kind of want you to cater to them, and it's very interesting.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, like from past experience too, it's like having an Xbox and two controllers isn't that appealing compared to actually having an arcade cabinet. It's like less of an eyesore, you know.
Yeah, and even talking about the arcade cabinet, I mean it sets itself apart. The arcade cabinet invites you in, but it also like gives you an idea of what you're stepping up to. So you see this cabinet and the art and the graphics on it and the screens going, but it's also saying like, play me, try this,
Oh
figure
yeah,
it out yourself.
sometimes your
Mm-hmm.
track mode is literally saying play me.
Right. So reflecting on all of these conventions, and I know you guys have been to tons more, what has been your favorite convention?
PAX Australia, I think it's just so nostalgic for me, and it's got like the best parts of PAX combined with the best parts of Australia, and I don't know. I happen to love Australian culture, and just being there amongst that culture, and then also mixed with PAX culture, was just like the best. Not to mention, it happens during Halloween, and like everyone's in cosplay.
Yeah, I agree. That was my favorite event that we did is PAX Aus. It was just some of the greatest people we've met are there. So we still have fans that we met during those events for our games. It just a lot of things kind of started at that event too. So there's a lot of positive memories around it.
We also found a lizard in a freezer at our Airbnb.
We,
That's
That's
dope.
definitely Australia for you. Well, I want to thank you guys for coming on. Before we wrap everything up, I want to get those social medias, so shout them out.
Oh yeah, we are discord.gg/blobs online. Come say what's up. And at Armed Gelatinous on all other social media, Instagram, Twitter, etc. So yeah, give us a follow and check us out at armedandgelatinous.com.
yep.
Right on.
All
It's a
right.
pleasure, y'all.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah,